Can you hear me? All right, we're ready to begin. Welcome to the July 26, 2023 meeting of the Urban Design Commission. My name is Tyler Holmes and I am the chair of the commission. When called upon, applicants and speakers will come to the front of the podium and speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Please do not approach the podium until it has been vacated by a previous speaker. Please speak into the microphone and identify yourself and provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments, questions, and testimony to the commission. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items by responding to the chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log at the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair on presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or the Arts District parking garage immediately south of City Hall, staff can provide a parking validation ticket for you. The agenda and documents are located at https at okcgov.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Urban Design Commission meeting, then click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Keith, will you please call the roll?
Holmes.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Black.
Here.
Cow.
Here.
Torneco.
Here.
Dixon Oso.
Here.
Peoples.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. All right. Going now into the approval of the previous minutes from May 24th, 2023. I'll give everyone a few minutes to review, and if there's a motion, just respond.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I seconded on the computer.
I'll withdraw my second. You can second it.
Okay. Then I second it. Thank you.
All right, it has been approved. Okay, are there any withdrawals from this past one, Michael? We do not have any withdrawals. No continuances requested. There's not a consent docket to approve. Let's move to individual consideration. UDCA-22-00025, parentheses R2 at 2124 Northwest 23rd Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item was continued from the last meeting on May 24th. The continuance was granted to allow the applicant more time to come up with screening alternatives for the ice water vending machine that's been installed at this location. We did receive 2 design alternatives for the proposed screening of this element of the site. One of them involves landscaping only, and the second involves a screen fence that is enhanced with some additional landscaping at the base of the fence. We've reviewed those 2 alternatives as staff and provided you with our assessment of both options. I think in the landscape only option, our most significant concern is obviously maintaining and keeping the plants alive if that's the option you go with. And this particular site has been vacant for a number of years, and it's been kind of left in a little bit of disrepair, if you want to call it that. So there is some concern about what would happen if the business that's going in there now might, not survive a long period of time, and then you have another vacant lot with nobody screening the vending machine if the landscaping happens to die. I don't think that we have, as staff, a preference on either one of the two options. We've given you a recommendation that allows the commission to choose either one of the two options. I think the big thing to note on both options is that the plans that were provided to us were just, I guess, visual renderings approaching the site from both the east and the west, and we did not receive any actual plans for the elevation of the fence or the planting of the plants and what types of plants are going to be used and so on and so forth. So in our recommendation, we've provided a condition for the commission to add to whatever action they may choose that depending on which option is chosen, the applicant would meet with staff after the meeting and prepare and submit to staff site plans and any necessary elevations for the fencing, if the fencing option is chosen. And that we, at the administrative level, after commission approval with your direction, would work out the details of those plans with the applicant directly. So that completes our presentation, and we're prepared to respond to any questions that the commission may have.
I have a question to the applicant. Hi again.
Hi, I'm Holly Hunt with 400 Northwest 23rd Street. As I read through the staff report, I think that they've done a fantastic job of outlining exactly all the points that we need to hit when we take it to this next level. Of course, I wanted to get you all's feedback before, knowing exactly which option we're going to be pursuing. All the height and length guidelines that they've laid out in the staff report, we're happy to meet with either option. One thing that I would say, and it was part of our original landscaping plan for the building when we first brought this before the commission, in that landscape plan you show that we have run PVC sleeves to the proposed landscaping strip along 23rd Street. So it'd be quite easy for us to extend that irrigation line to the planter bed that's now being proposed for screening in option 1 or option A. So certainly that would be reflected in my landscape plan. So I don't want you to think that it's something that we're not taking seriously as far as maintaining an irrigation to maintain these plants. Furthermore, I would just say one of the species that comes to mind that would be a great screening option would be Nellie Stevens hollies. They are an evergreen shrub, and you can also purchase those between like 6 and 8 feet. So if we do go with option A, which I hope you all will, and we can just do this with landscaping instead of having something a little bit more permanent, such as a fence, I just feel like it enhances the street view in a more successful way than a wood fence. But in that, we could certainly do a couple more Nellie Stevens hollies along the north side and a couple on the west, as I've shown. So we're happy. Either way, I think whatever you guys feel, we'll be happy to work with staff and nail down all these details on whichever option you all feel is the most appropriate. Thank you.
May I back up real quick? Did you have a question for staff? Okay. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question for the applicant. Apologies. So, quick question. Will you answer my initial question, which was going to be, what would you prefer to do? But part B of that is why? Why would you prefer, other than sort of, I think, maybe the obvious answer, why would you prefer landscaping over landscaping and the fence? That's the first part of that question.
Sure.
And second question is, in the rendering, the fence around the ice machine is exactly like the one behind the space, but that fence doesn't exist yet, right? This other one. So would these fences match? 'Cause I think right now there's like a picket fence behind
it's
there.
just a standard,
standard
wood fence, 6 foot, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, probably just to save time instead of drawing or modeling 2 different types of fence. But I do believe that in the model, I showed a 6 foot fence. We'd be happy to go to an 8 foot fence if that would be the preferred option. I think option 1 with all landscaping, especially with an evergreen set of plantings, it achieves the screening without being super rectilinear and as hardscape as a fence. I believe that it softens the view of the machine without sticking out more like a fence, I believe, would. So that's my thinking on that. I also just know, fences have requirements for footings, and it's just a more involved project as opposed to landscaping. So that's our feelings. But again, we're just happy to have the staff recommendation for approval options for both, and we're happy to meet whatever criteria it takes us to get into compliance.
Do you have some sort of, I don't know if it's called territorial reinforcement, where you'll have like the concrete barrier there to prevent people from driving into it? I sort of thought of the fence as like a structural reinforcement of that.
Well, luckily we don't really need that here on the north and west sides, just because we have curbs and there is a change in elevation. So I don't really see an issue of cars approaching it from that side. However, from the parking lot side, it is accessible, obviously for people to park close and roll up an ice chest or something like that. So as far as safety, I think it's probably the most safe to keep it open on the east and south sides, but on that north and west side, we can do something with landscaping or a fence just to visually create a barrier. But it's not much, I really don't believe it'd be any traffic safety concerns there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So have you taken a look at the site triangle request?
Yes, we're well behind it with these.
Do you know the
They're
approximate?
25 feet both directions from the center
Right.
line.
But when it goes off on a diagonal,
Yes.
how close is your structure to the diagonal line?
I mean, I would hate to lie, but I think we're in the good 3 to 5 foot grace there. It'll show on my landscape plan. Again, it's just wanted to get some feedback on the screening before we finalize the site plan. But I have looked at that, and I know it's not a concern on this. So we can make sure of that and on the site plan when we go to that level. Of course, Michael's mentioned it a couple of times, so I'll be sure and show that on the site plan.
The reason why I asked is the Nellies will get, they're pretty good diameter once they get established, and especially if they're 8+ feet tall, they could be 4+ feet wide. I do like the idea of the fence, having it tied. So if you build this fence, will you match the two fences? Is there going to be a fence on the south side of the property, or is that just in the
No.
rendering?
Yeah, it's just shown in the rendering again for a visual break because there is a fence there now. We can't really see the property to the south. However, I mean, there is I believe it's a duplex to the south. So another, not fully, it's not an R1 lot. We discovered that. So there's no landscaping screening buffer requirement
Nothing
there.
required.
So the fence is doing its job just to separate those two properties. I haven't specifically asked my client if he intends on replacing that fence. I'm pretty sure it's the property owners to the south fence that they constructed, mostly because we get the ugly side of the fence on our side. So, or I shouldn't say ugly, but you know what I mean. We get the pole side on
Utilitarian
ours.
side.
So, but it's certainly something if you felt like it was a necessary additional step, we could speak about that. There is a picture of it. It's not in terrible shape. I think any improvement to this site is going to really be an improvement. So, but yeah, I mean, just at least having a wood screened fence on this with the horizontal slats, it reads as different. It's not just your typical fence. It's going to read more like an installation for screening rather than, and maybe even an arbor type look, although the slats will be no less than 1 inch apart. So it'll read more like a landscape feature than a fence.
Thank you.
You know if it'll be cedar or pine treated?
I'm sorry.
You know if it'll be cedar or treated fence?
We'll probably do a treated cedar.
Okay.
And we'll be happy to add the cap that staff has recommended if that's the route we choose to go. So how are we feeling? Are we leaning more towards A or B?
I think I like the fence, and if you could put trees with it too, both would look nice. And also the fence would also protect you from weird, just exposure on the backside, just from a practical standpoint. I think it would deter some people at least, just with the walkability in the area.
Yeah, vandalism has been an issue on this site. Obviously, we hope that changes once the client has conducted the construction and opened his restaurant. But even though, I mean, this is like very well lit site, and we still have constant people sleeping behind the building, and so we definitely, I see your point, I guess is what I mean. And we're happy to do the fence, the screening fence, and I love the idea of creating a hedge in front of it, which I think I show some smaller plantings in that option. So we could kick that back, again, like a boxwood shrub or something like that, that would maintain a 3-foot height is certainly something we can do, again, just to break that up so you don't just see this boxy, out of place fence. Then it becomes really, again, emphasizes the landscape feature aspect to it.
Anyone else have any other comments or emotion?
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant shall submit the following detailed plans subject for review and approval of the staff. Revised site plan detailing the location, lengths, and heights of a proposed screen fence. Minimum height of the screen fence shall be 8 feet. North elevation shall be 8 feet wide. West elevation shall be 6 feet wide. Plan shall reference the required site distance triangle. Elevations of both the north and west sides of the proposed screen fence, including dimensions for the height and width of the screen, as well as the dimensions for the maximum spacing of the horizontal slats. The design of the screen fence shall include a cap rail similar in size to the corner post on the front of the fence. The maximum spacing between the horizontal slats shall be 1 inch. And the material shall be, as discussed, a cedar fence. And then a revised landscaping plan for the site, highlighting the location and vending machine along with the details on that location. Species and size of landscape material to be planted around the exterior of the base of the wood screen fence. The plan shall reference the required site distance triangle.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who's seconding?
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to the next item, we have UDCA-23-00020 at 3701 and 3737 North Lincoln Boulevard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application before you on this item 6B is for the construction of a new 2-story, 5,100 square foot office bank building with an attached drive-through structure. In addition to the main structure, you have a parking lot being constructed with drive-through lanes and drive aisles to access the parking stalls. Sidewalks both along the street in the public right-of-way and on-site. You also have some proposed signage, one freestanding sign at the northeast corner of the site and one attached wall sign on the north elevation of the building. Parking lot lighting standards in the parking lot, and then landscaping and an outdoor patio proposed for the users of this building, along with the removal of curb cuts along Northeast 37th Street and the removal of curb cuts on Northeast 36th Street. The ones on 36 will not be replaced, but the ones on 37th would be replaced with 2 new curb cuts. In addition to that, there is some screening involved. One is in association with the proposed trash enclosure at the west end of the site. And the second is to create a new screen fence for an existing fence that is there, that is surrounded by land owned by the applicant here, and it's a facility operated by ONG. There are, for the most part, this project is largely in compliance with all the applicable development regulations and design guidelines of the Lincoln Corridor Overlay District. There are, however, two issues that I want to review with the Commission before we get to the recommendation. The first part is a little bit of an oddball approach to this, and that is that this is a little bit of an unusual building. If you take the 5,100 square feet that's proposed in the building and apply to it the standard off-street parking ratio requirement for 26 parking stalls on site. However, this building is not your standard run-of-the-mill bank building. First of all, there's no public entry to anybody from the public to this facility. This is a kind of not a satellite, but it's a companion office to an existing office that the credit union has on Northeast 36th Street right now with a parking lot, and they will continue to conduct their in-person, face-to-face operations with customers in that building. This building, however, is really for a few very limited purposes. The first floor really has 4 stations for tellers to remote interact with the folks that are using the drive-through lanes that are proposed with this project. And then in addition, on the first floor, there are restrooms, I believe a safe, a lounge, and a break area, and that's pretty much it. So there's no offices or anything like that here. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a boardroom on the first floor. Second floor has only 2 executive offices, and if you look at the floor plans that you have in your packet on that second floor, there's not even any office space outside those offices for a secretary. So this is a very limited use building. You're not going to have a lot of people in it. It's only bank employees. The boardroom, as I understand it from the applicant, is not used during business hours. It's only used after business hours in the evenings, and it's only used I think once a month or something to that effect. So from that standpoint, you take all those things together, and we think it's a justified request to request a variance from that 26 parking stall requirement and just allow them to have only the 8 stalls available on site. Worst comes to worst, they do have access to the parking lot that exists currently today on Northeast 36th Street because they own that property as well. It's not on the site, but it's right immediately adjacent, and because they've bought this parcel to the north of that facility as well as a parcel to the east, which is on the corner of Lincoln and 36, they pretty much own all the property surrounding this site. So while it might not be the same property, it's in the same campus, if you'll understand that. So from that standpoint, we've supported their request for the variance on the parking. The second item has to do with a guideline that applies in the Lincoln Corridor District and applies in a lot of other districts as well, such as Northwest 23rd Street, for an example. But we normally do try to have some direct pedestrian access from the building entrance to the sidewalk on the street that the building fronts on. In this case, it's kind of a false impression to provide a sidewalk from the Lincoln Boulevard sidewalk to the building when you can't get in the building from there. You're not going to have walk-up traffic from people walking along Lincoln. Even people that park in the parking lot are not going to be able to get in this building if they happen to misunderstand the purpose of this building and they really want to go to the building next door, but they park here. They can't get in the building because of security measures that they have associated with this proposal. And for that reason, because it's a guideline and not a regulation, the Commission has the latitude to waive that particular guideline if they so choose. We have, at the conclusion of our analysis, determined that we are going to support the request for the variance. And part of the problem with putting the packet together is we had some plans that showed the sidewalk we're just talking about, but they're asking to have that removed, and they do have plans that they plan to submit that shows that sidewalk removed. So that's part of our recommendation as well. And then there'll be a second motion after that, if the commission is supportive of the variance request, to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment supporting the variance on the parking request. So that concludes our presentation. We're prepared to respond to any questions that the commission may have.
Okay. No questions? Is the applicant or representative available?
Hi, my name is Colin Fleck with Bacchus Payne Architecture. Do I need to state my address?
You need to.
I've signed in over
Yeah.
here. Okay. So we're with 3701 North Lincoln. That's Oklahoma Federal Credit Union. And I'm happy to take any questions that you all have. Appreciate your time. And Michael, thanks for the patience in helping us get into this point. So I'll take any questions that you all have.
Not a question. Not a question, but I do think it's an attractive project. I think it's nicely done. I think it'll be a nice addition to Lincoln Corridor.
Thank you.
I'll share that sentiment. It's a good looking project. I will say on the removal of the sidewalk, I'm a fan of that requirement. Usually sidewalks aren't just for your building, but it's for access to abutting properties. And I just think it's an infrastructure thing that if you guys don't incur that fee, the taxpayers will, so at one point or not. So I would strongly suggest to keep it. It's my vote on that.
I think we're indifferent there. If you guys feel like it is a requirement that should be in there, we'll put it in. It's not a hill that we would die on. It seems fake in a sense because we don't have any public access to the street on that side. But if you all feel strongly that way, we can go either way with it.
Well, that was something I was wondering too. Down the road, the building is used for something else, and it is open to the public. If they didn't do any renovations, I guess they wouldn't have to put that sidewalk in if they didn't want to. So, yeah, I could see keeping it.
Okay.
Is there currently a sidewalk along Lincoln Boulevard? And this is just not to add an additional sidewalk between the building and that current sidewalk, right?
Yeah, the guideline says that there should be a connecting access from the sidewalk on the street to the entrance of the building. And again, it's a guideline, not a regulation.
Oh. That is interesting. That may change my opinion, actually, if it's from the sidewalk to your building. If you guys see a need to do it on a private level, that's one thing, but if it doesn't benefit your use, I could see it not be needed. So. If there's any other questions or a motion. Oh, comments from the public. Anyone else have anything else to say? Sorry about it.
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the conditions that the applicant shall obtain a variance from the Board of Adjustments for the minimum off-street parking standards, and the applicant shall submit revised plans to staff that show the deletion of the sidewalk connecting the building to the sidewalk along North Lincoln Boulevard.
I'll second.
Okay. It passed. Congrats.
Thank you.
And I'll provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustments for a variance request from the minimum off-street parking requirements and for a variance request from the prohibition against signs located within the public right-of-way.
I'll second.
All right,
Thank you, folks.
now it's passed. Okay. Going into other business, pending street improvements projects.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Michael Clark from the Public Works Department to review with you a series of 3 different street enhancement projects that are located at least partially within the Urban Design Overlay District. Let's see, you've got Plaza is one of them. That's entirely in the Urban Design District. The second is Paseo, and that also is almost entirely within the UD District. And then the third one is North Walker Avenue, and that kind of straddles the line between a very small piece of Paseo up at 28th and Walker, and a very small piece down at 23rd. And then the stretch between that is all in the HL district, so the HP Commission will be looking at that stretch. And then once you get above 30th, I believe, it's not in any design review districts, and the project does continue on north on Walker from 30th up to 32nd. But Michael's here to give you a little bit of an overview of the 3 projects. Just so you're aware, all 3 of these projects are considered street improvement projects, and in the code, there are provisions for staff to be the one to be able to approve those documents administratively. So you won't see these coming back before you as a formal CA application for you to act on, but you will see it when they do get approved administratively. You will see it on the administrative approval reports.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My goal this afternoon is to make conceptual presentations on the Plaza, Paseo, and Walker Street enhancement projects. If I'm unclear in any of my information, please stop me at any time and I'll do my best to clarify. If you need information that I don't have available, I will capture it and supply it back to you through city staff. To get started, I would like to acknowledge the assistance that this city staff provides. Katie, Laura, and Michael are keenly aware of the requirements of the review process, as well as the information necessary for the commission to make decisions. They also actively engage with projects, pointing out constraints and opportunities, and joining those observations with expertise to create better solutions for the community. Their engagement is very much appreciated. All 3 of these projects are funded in the Better Streets, Safer City sales tax program. This was a voter-approved 27-month extension of the MAPS 3 penny sales tax, and it generated $264 million for roadway resurfacing, street enhancement, sidewalk, trails, and bicycle infrastructure projects. The Plaza Street Enhancement Project was intended as a modestly funded upgrade to the previous beautification effort that occurred on Northwest 16th Street between Indiana and Blackwelder some 20 years ago. In an assessment of the physical attributes of the district, it was identified that the condition of the roadway on Northwest 16th from Penn to Classen warranted a resurfacing. By combining 2 projects into one, staff was able to apply the cost for things like ADA compliant ramps, signalization, and striping onto the resurfacing contract and extend the funding available for amenities and other beautification type items within the street enhancement project. The street enhancement work has been broken into 2 phases. The first phase focused on maintenance activities, and it generally involved removing trip hazards and reestablishing consistent and identifiable pedestrian corridors behind the curb. The second phase brought in an architect to work with district representatives in developing palettes for various beautification components, such as outdoor furniture, upgraded landscaping, and potential wayfinding. In addition, this phase also examined infrastructure used to support the active programming undertaken by the district on a continuing basis. Your packet includes a general furniture layout that has been developed with the district's input, as well as an augmented landscaping plan. The district is working with city staff to provide input on how approximately $200,000 will be spent on Phase 2, and with that consensus, an appropriate Phase 2 application will be submitted at that time. The specifics of the project are 2 raised planters on the south side of Northwest 16th between Gatewood and Indiana were removed to increase pedestrian access. 2 streetlights were relocated to improve pedestrian access. The proposed furniture plan includes 9 benches, 15 trash cans, 12 bike racks, 3 4-seat tables, and 1 3-seat table. The proposed landscaping plan includes a total of 13 small to medium-sized trees, as well as a combination of grasses, yuccas, and sage. A 200 amp meter base with a 30 circuit panel to support festival type activities is being installed on the south side of 16th, just east of Blackwelder. And then other potential possibilities for the remaining funding would be a wayfinding effort and decorative pavement used as art. Are there any questions about the Plaza project before we move on? The Paseo Street Enhancement Project is more robustly funded, and it was designed to generally work from building face to building face along Paseo Drive from Northwest 28th to Northwest 30th. It also pulls in Northwest 29th between Lee and Walker, and Dewey between Northwest 28th and Northwest 30th. In developing the plans for Paseo, the district emphasized pedestrian safety, including eliminating trip hazards, ensuring ADA connectivity, and improving lighting levels. From a visual standpoint, the district wanted the design to be very similar to what exists today. They filled their drawing card as the unique, colorful Spanish Revival architecture that highlights an eclectic roster of art galleries, restaurants, and retail shops. To that end, sidewalks with brick paver banding will be installed, along with OG&E's current standard replacement for the existing streetlight fixtures. Simple black wrought iron outdoor furniture has been chosen so to not compete with the kaleidoscope of colors in the area. The size and shape of several of the landscaped bump outs will change slightly to better establish drive lanes, parking, and pedestrian paths. The existing Paseo identification markers will be refreshed and shifted into new locations within those planted areas. In addition, the center median at Northwest 29th will be preserved largely untouched, save for an ADA compliant ramp on the east side and resetting several pavers that have fallen. The roadway on Paseo Drive will be removed and reinstalled in concrete, and the paving on both Northwest 29th and Dewey will be revised in the same material as it exists today. An effort is currently underway to compare the proposed design against the established layout for the district's annual arts festival, including an evaluation of possible infrastructure to support enhanced electrical demands during the festival. Staff working on the street enhancement projects have realized that districts developed within neighborhood areas often lack specific upgraded infrastructure to support the changing uses occurring in the districts. Prime examples of this challenge are alleys and trash dumpsters. Phase 2 of the Paseo project will be an application identifying proposed public and private parking areas located off alleys and dumpster pads to be constructed in the public right-of-way. Both will ultimately require variances from the Board of Adjustment to be used legally. Furthermore, staff will work with the district stakeholders to obtain revocable permits required by city ordinance. Your packet includes plan sheets showing the proposed overall layout for the project. The specifics of the project are a furniture plan that includes 8 benches, 7 trash cans, 3 bike racks, 4 wayfinding signs, and 3 pet stations. It also adds a total of 23 medium to small size trees, and it adds 19 street lights throughout the district. Again, if you have any questions about Passaic, I would be glad to try to answer them.
I would point out that I need to rectify what I told you before, because this project, in all likelihood, will involve some variances, and because it will involve variances, it would come back to the commission for a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment.
How many speed humps did y'all had?
I'm sorry.
Speed humps? I see speed humps are in here on some areas. Is that, will that require a variance for those?
I'm sorry?
Speed humps?
Those are actually part of the Walker project rather than
Okay.
Passaic.
Oh, that's right. I thought I had, but.
They are part of the city's speed abatement program, and they do not require traffic commission approval, but we will be making an application to traffic commission. And again, if that's something that this board needs to see, I would be happy to do so.
Okay. I got ahead there, but I was kind of excited to see this.
Well, and I'm going to modify it just a little bit. I think what they're considering is actually speed cushions instead of speed humps.
Yeah.
But again, in lieu of another 4-way stop on Walker, I think that that's one of the things that have been proposed.
Okay.
The Walker Street Enhancement Project runs from Northwest 23rd to Northwest 32nd. And this corridor features sections that read as being retail-oriented, while other segments appear more like a typical neighborhood collector street. The project's intended purpose is to connect the Paseo to Uptown 23rd via a pedestrian spine that also provides access points to and from the surrounding neighborhoods. The project will establish sidewalks, street lighting, and landscaping on both sides of Walker, combined with the resurfacing of the roadway. The blocks between 23rd and 24th, 29th and 30th, and 30th and 31st all have more commercial aspects to them, and the design in these locations will include improvements to on-street parking as well. Bob Burchell, a respected local arborist, evaluated the health of existing trees in the public right-of-way along both sides of Walker between 23rd and 32nd. Mr. Burchell has recommended the replacement for a number of trees primarily due to health concerns, and staff will review those recommendations with adjacent property owners during the project. New trees are proposed to be reestablished in a nearly 3-to-1 ratio for any trees removed. The project will be at a 2-year establishment period for both trees and other planted materials that will include watering, fertilization, and maintenance. One of the unique things to the Walker Street Enhancement Project is the application of rain gardens on all 4 corners of the Northwest 29th and Walker intersection, and on the northeast and southeast corners of the 28th and Walker intersection. In simplest terms, a rain garden in this design is a landscape bump out designed to capture and hold water. The bump out is engineered with a bottom drain that connects to an adjacent storm sewer in the case of prolonged heavy rains. Historically, both intersections have been prone to flooding, and while the rain gardens will not eliminate that potential, they provide an infrastructure that can take the first flush of rainfall off the roadway and reduce the impact of ponding in the area. The second, somewhat less common solution to an ongoing problem is the consideration of speed cushions at certain intervals along Walker. The idea is to reduce the speed drivers travel on this section of roadway without resorting to an additional four-way stop on Walker. Speed cushions have been approved as part of the city's speed abatement program, and by definition, they are a rounded, raised section of roadway placed within the street. A speed cushion differs from a speed hump in that it has a wheel path cut through it to allow a wider wheel path vehicle, such as those driven by first responders, to pass through them with minimal effect. Your packet includes plan sheets showing the proposed overall layout for the project. Unfortunately, updated plan sheets were received the day after Michael called for agenda items. I will be happy to provide updated copies to you, but in general, the chief differences are enhanced east-west pedestrian crossings at all intersections and a revised plan for the distribution of the speed cushions. As Michael said, a portion of the Walker Street Enhancement Project also falls within the Historic Preservation District, and appropriate review will occur in that jurisdiction as well. The specifics of this project are the arborist report recommended the removal of 19 trees. The proposed landscaping plan installs 57 new trees, all generally small to medium trees. There are 22 street lights proposed, 9 on the east side of Walker and 13 on the west. And right now, the general dispersion of speed cushions are shown in the block between 25th and 26th, generally around the 28th and Walker intersection, and also around the 31st and Walker intersection. And again, I would certainly try to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks for the presentation. That was
Well, thank y'all
great.
very much.
Any questions, anybody? There we go. Thank you. Right. Looks like communications. Anyone have any questions on any of these items or? Okay. No approval needed there. Comments from planning staff?
None at this time,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Anything from commission members? Okay, our next meeting date will be August 23rd, and we will see you all there. Thank you.